Hello folks, Anahita Rao. I wanted to discuss a very important transit today, but before I do, I want to say a big thanks to those who have subscribed and to those who leave feedback. Now, if you need to contact me for a reading or connect with me on social media, I've put the links in the description box below, so have a look there. All right, so today we're going to look at Saturn's movement into Shravan Nakshatra. Saturn moves into Shravan on January the 22nd until February the 17th, 2022. That date may vary a little bit depending on where you are in the world. So let's get into this, yeah? Now, as I've said many times before, the primary result of a planet is always derived from the house where it is and the nakshatra, where it's situated or where it's transiting. Secondarily, we see which houses are aspected by this planet. So, at the moment, despite a change in nakshatra for Saturn, we need to still keep the aspects in mind. Besides the normal 7th aspect, which all planets have, Saturn has 2 other special aspects. 3rd and 7th. Essentially, this is the equivalent of the sextile and square aspect in Western astrology. Now, the effect of Saturn's 3rd aspect is where we must make effort to get results. Now, does this guarantee results? Perhaps, but at times it can seem like an endless effort with little return. So it's going to depend on how strong the Lord is of the 3rd house from Saturn. Then there is the 10th aspect, which is the most powerful aspect, due to the fact that Saturn is the Garka of the 10th house. And so this is where we see the karma manifesting in our lives. So essentially, during this transit, Saturn continues to aspect Cancer, Pisces, as well as Libra with its 10th aspect. But we also have to remember that Saturn is being aspected by a very strong Rahu in Taurus at this time. Meanwhile, Jupiter from Capricorn is aspecting Taurus, further empowering that already capable Rahu. In fact, these 3 planets will continue to impact each other for most of this year. So if you have important planets in any Earth signs, get ready for some big life changes coming your way, whether you like it or not. There will be some surprises, but lots of growth potential. For water signs, you may have to retract a bit and let go in areas of your life impacted by Saturn. Now, for this video today, first I want to speak about Shravan, and then I'm going to get more into Saturn's transit and talk about it. So during this transit through Shravan, we can nurture some of the foundations that many of us have started to put into place after a very changeable and challenging 2020. The controlling planet of Shravan is the moon, making strong structures and secure foundations a priority. Though, because it's the moon, it means we will be dealing with some instability as well, with Saturn moving through it. Shravan is all about listening, hearing, rather than talking. So it's a good time to actually go inward and contemplate before taking some action. Moon and Saturn are the 2 planets governing this nakshatra, Moon being, as I mentioned, the ruling planet of the nakshatra, and Saturn, of course, situated in Capricorn, where we find Shravan. Both Moon and Saturn are intimately connected with the masses and mass mentality. So, we can expect to see the politicians getting a lot of criticism by people at this time and throughout the year Imaginary fears and phobias can also take expression in the mind while Saturn transits here. Shravan enables us to link people together by connecting them to their appropriate paths in life. So many people at this time will be undergoing major transformations to their life path with Saturn transiting here. In fact, the symbol of an ear is associated with this nakshatra. The ear represents the ability to hear, and accordingly the ability to learn and then preserve that knowledge, which is the connection to Vishnu here, which we'll get into in a little bit. And so again, the emphasis is on knowledge, teaching, communication. It's also the birth star of Saraswati. And in this way, Shravan signifies educational proficiency, respect for the Shastras, the Vedas, and just higher knowledge, higher divine knowledge, generally. Yeah. This relationship with Saraswati connects this nakshatra to the use and study of languages as well, and to music and to media. And this influence makes it a good time to gain knowledge, develop skills, especially in music or arts. It's also a good time to learn a foreign language if you ever thought about doing that. Now, Shravan doesn't like to leave things in the middle or undone, so this is probably why it's considered a good time to begin something. So any activity that you start in this nakshatra always reaches its completion. So it's an excellent time to make some starts, especially in career, because we're talking about Capricorn. It can make us determined and dedicated to a goal, as it's a fixed nakshatra. So if you decide on a goal, you can go to any lengths to achieve it. And being that we have Saturn gliding through here, we will need this kind of perseverance, as the Saturn energies can bring all sorts of obstacles and blocks, and not just that, but even some U-turns with your plans when Saturn goes retrograde. The deity for Shravan is Vishnu, as I mentioned before, the preserver of the great Trinity. In the mythology that's connected to this nakshatra, Vishnu is represented by Lord Vamana, who measures the universe with 3 great strides. So this is why skillfulness, cleverness, diplomacy will help you here to achieve goals, rather than a direct or aggressive approach. This was demonstrated in the myth when Vamana disguised himself to stop King Bali from abusing his powers. So it is here that we can gain immensely by being strategic, calculating, and of course practical. Again, these are characteristics personified by Vishnu. The Shakti of Shravan is that of connection. It's the power to connect to others and the power to connect to higher levels of consciousness within yourself. Out of all of the 27 nakshatras, there's only 3 nakshatras that are ruled by the Trinity. Trinity is what in Hinduism it's represented by Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwar. Rohini is ruled by Brahma. Ardra is ruled by Shiva in his Rudra form. And Shravan, of course, is ruled by Vishnu. Hence, these 3 nakshatras are considered special in their own ways. And 2021 is going to highlight this even further. While Saturn is in Shravan this year, Rahu will transit Rohini from late January till October of this year. And both of these nakshatras have the moon as their controlling planet. So not only are they part of the Trinity, but they have that in common. And all nakshatras that are ruled by the same planet fall, of course, into an exact trine with one another. This creates a very special focus on the moon or the mind this year, the feminine principle, the public, the masses, and what we all consider the concept of home. With Saturn and Rahu occupying these nakshatras, this may show some challenges in all of these areas, especially for food supply chains and all of the caring professions, including doctors, nurses, counselors, teachers, healthcare workers. And already we are hearing about the stresses to the healthcare systems across the world. So these transits will further agitate the mind as the moon becomes the central planet here. So the impact of both Rahu and Saturn will be felt throughout the year because of the link to this constantly changeable movement of the moon, the waxing and the waning. So, what does that mean? Well, it makes it doubly important to incorporate remedies for the moon in your daily life this year. And I'm sure some of you already do this, but let me mention a few here. Meditation and pranayam, making your home space very comfortable and peaceful, preparing home-cooked meals, getting massages and having long warm baths, drinking lots and lots and lots of water, listening to soothing music, and spending more time with your children and pets. Now, Jupiter will also be with Saturn in Shravan from January the 6th till March the 3rd, so this can alleviate some issues that may pop up. Shravan spans from 10 degrees till 23.3 degrees of Capricorn. So this Saturn's transit on the 22nd of January will start in Pada 1 of Shravan in the Navamsha of Aries. In the beginning of the transit, Saturn is deeply combust, and of course it's debilitated in D9 as well, because it moves into Aries, the Navamsha of Aries. However, by January the 29th, when the Sun moves on further away from Saturn, but still in Capricorn, at that point Saturn will be traveling between two benefic planets, Venus and Jupiter. So this may uplift the energy somewhat. Now, in Pada 1, we can feel some frustrations. It's an excellent time to introspect and reflect. But being Saturn will be in Aries Navamsha, we will see some impulsive actions and perhaps more health scares. Maybe even hearing more about even more variants of the COVID virus coming out. However, it's a good time to plan some career initiatives, as this is a very ambitious Pada. Though I would say wait to act until after it moves into Pada 2 on February 20th. Saturn does in fact enter Pada 2 of Shravan in the Navamsha of Taurus. Now here you can expect strong material results, as it's a Pushkara Navamsha, so you can feel nourished in matters related to whatever Saturn represents in your chart. It also strengthens relationships, and further, Venus will be exalted during part of this transit. So that's quite helpful. It makes it easier to manifest some of those good bits. Diplomacy, courtesy, and tact are qualities that will get results with, Venus and Taurus being activated. Then Saturn goes in the Navamsha of Gemini on March the 25th, and normally it does quite well here. So due to its retrograde cycle, Saturn will remain in this Pada for a long 4 months. Though at the beginning of this transit, March 25th, Saturn's going to be joining Rahu and Mars in the D9 in Navamsha, who are also forming a very close conjunction in Rohini in the Rashi chart in the D1. So this last week of March may bring some challenges in areas of travel and also mass communications. We could be hearing some negative news at this time. We may be dealing with a lot of mixed or confused messages coming from, especially from the media. It's also a time which is ripe for misrepresentations, miscommunications, especially since Mercury will also be debilitated from March end till mid-April, approximately. Now the good news here is that on April the 5th, Jupiter moves into Aquarius, so Saturn will start to operate on its own, and Rahu's aspect on Saturn will also start to separate. From May 23rd till October 11th, Saturn is retrograde. I'm going to talk in more detail about this, and I'll make a video about this closer to the date. But this period, of course, prolongs the Saturn transit through the third pada in the Navamsha of Gemini. Then on July the 24th, Saturn returns to the second pada in the Navamsha of Taurus for nearly 2 months. This is a very good period during the transit, so I would say make the most of it. Here Saturn has moved, again, 5th place from itself, back to Taurus, Navamsha. So it's a good time for any creative endeavor that you wanted to pursue. Advisors, healers, counselors, teachers can do quite well at this time. If you wanted to complete a project that you started earlier this year but ran into problems, then you can also look into doing that now. It's also a good time to start your own business and a very good time to make money, just generally, when it's in the Navamsha of Taurus. On September 13th, Saturn returns to the first pada in the Navamsha of Aries. This period can bring some challenges, as this period coincides with Jupiter's return to its debilitated position in Capricorn, joining this retrograde Saturn. So here you can expect some disturbances and emotional instability. If you thought to start something, this may not be the best time to do so. Your ambitions and career plans can be met with some resistance here as well. It is, however, a good time to learn something new, if you wanted to do that. On October 11th, Saturn goes direct but stays in the Aries Navamsha for the third time. On November 7th, Saturn again returns to the second pada in the Navamsha of Taurus. So we're back to the Pushkara Navamsha. Here you can progress with your material goals, especially when Jupiter returns to Aquarius on November the 20th. So it's a good period overall. It's also a very good time to resolve any relationship matters. On December 21st, Saturn returns to the third pada in the Navamsha of Gemini. This should be a positive time as well, since Mercury's position is strong and Saturn remains alone here and unobstructed. On January the 20th, Saturn finally reaches the fourth pada in the Navamsha of Cancer. It's here that Shravan has an affinity, right? Because it's connecting with the moon. This brings out qualities of the receptive, sympathetic, and nurturing side of Saturn. It's a creative pada, so you may be inventing or creating something new in your life as well. Moving residence can also happen for many people at this time, and it would be a good time to do so if you were thinking about it. But, as usual, we're talking about Saturn, remember. So keep in mind that you will face endings, obstacles with new starts, and a reminder to, of course, surrender to what seems like fated events in your life. On February the 17th, 2022, Saturn finally leaves Shravan and moves into Anishta. So overall, I would say this is a mixed transit. Mostly we have some good bits, but also some challenging times, especially during that Saturn retrograde period that I mentioned. The challenging bits, I would say, are especially from the last week of March till approximately mid-April, when Saturn is in the third pada and connecting closely with Rahu. And then from mid-September till around the time Saturn goes direct, which is October 11th. And this can be a bit of a challenge for a few reasons. including the fact that Saturn is in the bunch of Aries and Jupiter is also with Saturn at this time, retrograde. So now, what is Saturn anyway, and why is it considered such a dreadful planet? Well, Saturn's movement and its transits impact us more dramatically than any other planet. And only the nodal transits can affect us with the same kind of intensity. Now, if there's one word I would choose to describe Saturn, I would say it's limitation. This means basically understanding the limits imposed on us and working within those parameters, right? Depending on where Saturn is in your chart. And depending on where Saturn is in your chart, where it's moving, you will see life's shortcomings. You'll also see the barriers and obstacles highlighted. Saturn is showing you the limits of not just what you can do and not do, but also the limits of time, just generally for everyone. So you become aware of all those aspects that are out of your control, and therefore at times they may seem fated. So Saturn signifies setbacks, delays, endings, restrictions. Ultimately, Saturn teaches us to accept these limits, basically understand perhaps the fears and doubts associated with them, and of course develop patience. Once that veil of illusion that we build, that all of us build to cope with life, once that gets removed during Saturn's transit, we are left with the harshness of reality, and then we must reinvent and transform our lives in some way or another. So in this way, Saturn tries to teach us to cultivate a bit of detachment, right? So not to put too much ownership on the event and your perception and your emotions, etc., all of that. So wherever Capricorn falls in your chart, you may experience this. You may experience with all this feelings of sorrow, of helplessness, of loneliness, of isolation. So in order to really understand how this transit will affect you, you need to look at the following. You need to see the lordship of Saturn for your Lagna. For instance, if you're a Cancer Lagna, then Saturn is your 7th and 8th lord. So you could be reevaluating your relationship with your life partner or your business partner. And you may have been faced with some surprises in this area, right? Because of the 8th lordship. 8th lord transiting the 7th house can also result in deep changes in your own personality and your own psyche at this time. So by the end of this transit, you would have changed in significant ways. Also see any planets that are situated in Shravan in your chart and see what they represent. If you have personal planets here, of course you will be impacted directly by this transit. All right, so let's take an example. Let's suppose you're a Scorpio Lagna and you have Venus sitting in Shravan. Then this would of course trigger your 7th and 12th house matters, as Venus rules these houses in your chart. So some undesirable travel could come up, a move abroad could come up. Perhaps you were trying to move abroad, but some hiccups have come up, so you're unable to do so, and you have to postpone it. Again, because of delays and obstructions that Saturn can bring. Relationship matters for you could also go through some problems, especially if you have a serious partner, because Saturn is your 7th lord, and it's moving over that Venus. Whenever Saturn generally moves over Venus, in anyone's chart, despite it being the 7th lord, it can bring sorrow and disappointment in relationships. It may result in breakups for some people, and for others, a complete transformation of their relationship, perhaps one that they did not expect. If you're going through a moon dasha or antardasha, or if you have your moon in Shravan, this, of course, could be a challenging year for you, as both Rahu and Saturn are impacting moon nakshatras. We also have to see not only the controlling planet of the nakshatra, but also the ruling deity, right? Here we have Vishnu. Shakti of Shravan is that of connection. It's the power to connect to others and the power to connect to higher levels of consciousness. So because it's Saturn transiting here, you have to be patient with your goals and practice detachment, especially because the moon is getting very impacted. So as I mentioned, the moon is getting heavily impacted by this transit, and it will do so throughout the year. It plays out in transit, as well as you have to look at your natal chart. So if it's going over your moon in Shravan, of course, that's a direct impact. But also, just the fact that both Saturn and Rahu are moving through moon's nakshatras, we have to look at the moon's movement all throughout the year. And as you know, that's waxing and waning, so constantly changing. Rahu from Rohini is furthermore going to be aspecting Saturn in Shravan, and this will intensify this impact. So, very important to have daily rituals to silence the mind. It's a great time for meditation retreats, nature retreats, in case you ever thought about it. Practice some of the moon remedies I mentioned, such as getting up early and sleeping early. Spending time in nature, keeping the noise out. So you can practice silence on your own once a month. It's quite easy to do that. Long baths, massages, making and eating home-cooked meals, do yoga, pranayam. Pranayam is excellent because you're connecting with your breath, which is directly linked to your mind. Yes. If you do mantra puja or any kind of deity worship, then of course Krishna or Vishnu get associated with this nakshatra. If you want to do mantras, then of course an easy one would be Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. It's a Vishnu mantra. Remember, as always, your dasha will serve as the background and take importance. So, if you're in a Saturn dasha, then this transit is, of course, very relevant to you. Yeah. All right, so that's all for now, folks. As usual, please feel free to leave your comments. And do remember to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you, and be well. Cheers.